Okay, so yeah, sort of. We talk about whatever pops up. So I tend to ask people what they want now. Then I tend to ask a question. Is anybody got a burning question about your mind, about practice, about anything at all? I think it's a good way to start. Keep it very open. Is there anything you'd like to ask me to start the ball rolling? Anything at all? What do you think? Nobody? Something burning?
I do have a question, Venerable Robina. I just found out yesterday that my niece, who is going to be 13, was trying to kill herself and has been trying that for, I guess, a couple times. And my question is, how do you advise on, especially with teenagers, what you do with that?
Unbearable. I mean, is she close to you? Well, my first question is she close to you? Does she love you?
She's not, unfortunately.
So her mother or her father is your sibling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, my brother.
So you're close to your brother?
Mm-hmm.
You're close to your brother?
Yes, I am, yes.
That's the one you'd be advising, isn't it then? If that's the case, yeah?
Yes, yes. I spoke with them yesterday, and we talked about her possibly coming out and visiting with me and kind of bonding, but I've been just thinking about it all day.
Of course you have. I don't wonder. And it's just so utterly, unbelievably tragic. This is not an uncommon scenario, you know. It's just so despairing. I mean, it's like the thing that to me, this seems to point. Okay, if I think of the Buddhist approach to it, I think if we had that approach, not even being a Buddhist, you know, but just this idea, this seems to indicate this powerful feeling we have that when things go wrong, join the universe, things go wrong, that somehow we feel, and this is the tragedy, and then we believe there's no light at the end of the tunnel. This is the point, isn't it? When you feel when you feel you cannot see any benefit, you cannot see any purpose, you cannot see any value, even especially in yourself. This is, I mean, it's not trying to make it simplistic because everyone would say there's a slightly different reason. But, you know, this is not necessarily even advice here, Alexis, it's just a Buddhist take on it. And, you know, if there's something in here that we can, so, okay, you know, if someone came to me who is despairing, first of all, it depends on how close they are. That's my first question to you. What are they to you, you know? Mm-hmm. But even if it weren't, for a person who is not even close, but is a person who asks me and says they're despairing, life is worthwhile, life is useless, not worthwhile. The first thing the thing is, to me, it seems to me, is we can't just give them a lecture. We'll do this and do that and don't do this and you shouldn't think this and this is ridiculous. But somehow it's to show when you're feeling you're despairing and you see no light at the end of the tunnel and someone is in front of you, the thing you need to do is make them feel like make them feel there is some worth. I mean, how do you do that? But almost as if it's as simple as all you can do is just be loving and be kind and be optimistic, you know? Because, I mean, when we feel, one of the things, the way the Buddhism talks about ego, the more we suffer, the more we are separate from others. The way the Buddhism describes what they refer to, if you like, as ego, roughly speaking, when we're overwhelmed by attachment, overwhelmed by anger, overwhelmed by despair, overwhelmed by jealousy, overwhelmed by depression, by hopelessness, you name it, all these words we know so well. One of the key functions of that is you feel utterly isolated. You can't see anything or anyone else. So there's a sense of utter disconnect, isn't there?
Yeah.
So if you're with a person who's despairing, at least if they're even in front of you, is to sort of not to give lectures, but to be loving and to show there's some sense of connectedness, that you see them, that you hear them. They feel, I mean, even if I often think of like people in old people's homes who are totally old and, you know, drugged out of their brains like old vegetables and there's nothing and nobody for them. Even the cleaning lady being kind to them can be something that's like, that can be something that can be transformative. The thing that we need most, you know, is to have the person in front of you is to feel like there's that you are reflecting back to you something good. We almost have to be like a mirror for the other person and not mirror their despair and their anger, but mirror their own goodness. I mean, the general point, because when you're despairing or when you're really angry or when you're really depressed or when you're really jealous, this is the Buddhist analysis. Those have these states of mind have the function. They're the function of ego. This is the tragedy, the irony of ego, and they make us totally separate. There's a feeling of utter separateness, you know. And the other tragic thing, and we all know this one, even if we don't want to kill ourselves, the utter tragic thing of this is that we somehow believe that what we feel is the absolute truth. This is something that's so primordial, it almost seems weird to say it. But even if you're very angry, forget about being depressed, but being angry with somebody else, let's say, angry with somebody else, or you're interpreting another person in a certain way. When we are feeling this way, when the unhappy state of mind is there, the very character of unhappy states of mind, from the Buddhist analysis, is it's set in stone. I am hopeless, or he is hopeless, and there's not a millimeter of space, even the possibility that you could see it from another point of view. That's the miracle. I mean, if we can see something from another point of view, then we can see there's light at the end of the tunnel. We can see there's some possibility. But it's the tragedy of the deluded states of mind, this is a Buddhist analysis, anger, attachment, jealousy, low self-esteem, you name it, that they're set in stone. And when those thoughts are rampaging in your mind, there's not a minute, the other part of your mind, there's no part of your mind thinking, well, I wonder if this is really true. I wonder if I can see it from another point of view. Because the millisecond you think that, then you're okay. But as you can't see, there's another possibility. That's the tragedy. And that's, I mean, speaking intellectually, that's the Buddhist analysis of the unhappy states of mind. The happy states of mind, the positive states of mind, the reasonable ones like kindness and love and compassion and self-respect and self-worth, they're spacious, you know, they're not rigid, they're spacious, and they're connected to others, and there's a connectedness and a feeling of connectedness with others, and that's the saving grace. But this is the tragedy of these unhappy states of mind. They're set in stone. We believe there's no alternative. We believe there's no option, and this is how things are. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. Is your brother, I mean, is he just despairing himself and not knowing what to do and what to think? Is he close to his daughter?
He is. I talked to him and my sister-in-law yesterday, and she's right now in one of those kind of like hospitals or something for a week or two, which
yes.
I think will
be helpful
good.
To her. She gets the support there, or just she's got some support there.
I believe she'll get some support there, and then we'll just kind of see what goes on. I just feel like I don't know, when you're 13 and stuff, you don't really have the kind of capability to like jerk yourself out of that.
No, it's true. Of course not. Of course you can't. No, but I mean, this is where and is she close to her parents?
Yes, she is.
That must be so sad for the parents. I mean, this is a heartbreak, isn't it, for the parents too?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just so sad. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. It's just not uncommon. It's so not uncommon.
Yes, that's true.
And I suppose and all I can say is it seems like, isn't it, that's the indication of the view that seems to prevail in our culture, that we can't see any purpose. And if everywhere you look around, there's hopelessness and misery, and you go online and there's you know, and it's just all you can do is see the hopelessness. And this is also the point when your mind's unhappy. It's so interesting when your mind's depressed or angry. The Buddhist view is that everything that's out there, as Lama puts it, whatever's out there in the world is reflected. This is the way they put it in Buddhist psychology. Whatever's out there in the world is reflected back to us in the aspect, that's what they say, is reflected back to us in the aspect of what is in our mind. So if anger's in your mind, all you're seeing is ugliness. All you're seeing is horrible things. You don't even see the good things. And it's exactly the same with depression. When you are depressed, which is about your own self-aversion for yourself, basically, or just despairing about the world, all you can see is that. This is what's so fascinating, because, you know, when you're angry one day, but a week ago you were not angry and you saw some possibility out there, but when you're angry, you forget everything else. When you're depressed, you forget everything else. It becomes so all-consuming, the view that's in our mind now, you know?
Yes.
I mean, it's so powerful. So all you can, this is my point, all you can do is give them encouragement, give them your brother, give him love, give him encouragement, let him know there's a possibility, don't give up, she's got marvelous qualities, you got to tell her marvelous qualities. All you can do is really listen to him.
Okay.
And in your own mind, this is what's another whole aspect now for all of us. When we've got attachment, this is the Buddhist analysis, when we've got lots of attachment manifests in many ways, and it's a disease we all have, but one of the key way it functions is we ourselves only want to have nice things in front of us. When suddenly you have your brother despairing about his daughter killing himself, almost like your attachment can't cope with this, so that brings up your aversion. And then we either sort of stick our nose in and try to manipulate it to make it all go away, or to try and fix it as if it's your job somehow. But no, that's not your job. Your job is just to love your brother, to give him confidence, to give him ability to know that, you know, nothing's impossible. And give him love and kindness without having to try and answer all his problems. You see what I'm saying, Alexis? That's
Yes.
the best you can do, darling. That's the
Yes.
best you can do, you know.
Yes.
And then, of course, if it works and maybe she comes out and she spends time with you, that could help.
Mhm.
It's a tough one. I mean, in any, whatever it is in somebody else's mind, it's a tough one. But this is also the point, Alexis. If I haven't done any work on my mind, if we haven't done any work on our mind, we really can't do much for others at all. We can't do much, you know. We've got to know our own mind well. We've got to know what we've got to know. This is the, what is the wisdom wing. You've got to know your own attachment, your own depression, your own fears, your own jealousy. Then you're equipped to really understand somebody else, and then you can give sympathy. And if they want advice, you'll give it. If they don't, you'll give them a hug. Whereas if it's only coming from our attachment to try and make it all nice, we'll stick our nose in where it doesn't belong. We won't really see the situation properly, and we'll end up just making a mess.
Mhm.
Or, I mean, sometimes the best we can do is just be loving and kind. Not even give advice, just be loving and kind to help your brother lift himself up and not despair, you know. That's
Mhm.
it for me. And the tragedy is too, is we can see it all over the planet. It's everywhere. We can't make it go away. We can do the work in ourselves. And that's why the energy, you know, and that's why if we see the suffering in the outside world, this is Buddhist view again, I have to start with me. I've got to start with me. I can't look around. Who's going to help my friend? Who's going to help my? Send your daughter here. Send your daughter there. Send your person. You know, you tell your brother go see a therapist. No, if I can't try and work on my mind first, I can't even lift my fingers to help anybody. So you've got to do your own work, and that also that qualifies us in two ways. It helps us become more happy. And this is something just interesting. A conversation coming up recently a couple of times about this business of being compassionate to others, helping others. Sometimes we think in our culture, if you always, let's say you've got a job, we're always having to help others. If you're one of those hospitals right now with COVID-19, you're exhausted, working every day, seeing dying people everywhere, or you're a therapist and you're dealing with poor people all day. It really is overwhelming because suffering of the world is exhausting. But the interesting point is we tend to think in our culture, if you're out there helping other people, you've got to then have some time off to take care of yourself. And that what we mean in our culture, that means, you know, have a massage, have a rest. We don't need all that, there's no question. But it goes much deeper in the Buddhist view, this idea of the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. The compassion wing is the point, to be of benefit to others. But as His Holiness Dalai Lama says, compassion is not enough. You've got to have wisdom. And wisdom is not some grand thing. Wisdom is the ability to be able to see what's going on, to read things carefully, and to be able to know how to help. So, and then we only get that. Yes, have a rest. Yes, have a massage. Yes, have a weep. But that's not going to qualify you to get any more wisdom. What wisdom means in Buddhism is what you get when you lessen your own fears. You lessen your own sense of isolation by working on your own mind, giving up attachment, giving up anger, having a daily practice where you lessen your own neuroses. One, the benefit of that is you feel more content and more fulfilled and more optimistic. And two, naturally, it breaks down the barriers between you and others, which is what are created. That barrier between self and other is what's created by our own delusions, our own neuroses. So as we lessen our own neuroses, that's what the wisdom wing means. That qualifies you to become more happy and more fulfilled and therefore more courageous and therefore more capable of helping others. And then you won't get dragged down. You will have a good sleep and you'll go back to work tomorrow and you won't be destroyed. But when we've got lots of fears and lots of attachment, lots of depression, our own selves, and the world is an awful place sometimes, then that'll overwhelm you. And no wonder people working in hospitals are killing themselves because they can't cope with the pain because we haven't worked on our own minds. This is something that we don't think like in our modern culture, you know. In other words, Alexis, if you were so neurotic and so miserable in your own self, you wouldn't be able to help your brother do anything. You just make it worse, you know.
Yes.
It's so clear, isn't it? But also, and that's the tragedy too, if we've got lots of attachment wants to make everything lovely. It's a neurotic part of our mind that wants to make it all nice. So if you keep helping somebody, let's say you keep helping your niece, let's just say, but she keeps trying to kill herself, you will feel like you've been a failure, won't you? Because, well, I've tried to help her and she keeps trying to kill herself, then I'm a failure. This is not true. This is really interesting. Our success at helping others, the criterion of our success in helping others isn't that they all suddenly behave nicely. That in other words, if you're a nurse and you go into work and everybody gets better, then you'll think I was a good nurse. No, everybody dying doesn't mean you're still not a good nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm trying to say here? So everybody not still being miserable doesn't mean you're not a good nurse. You're doing everything you can in your power to take care of them, but due to their karma, they're going to still die. But we tend to judge our ability to help by whether or not the people become better. Like if your poor mother, with our mothers, it's so common, our parents. If your mummy's neurotic and miserable and got low self-esteem and she's always needing you and manipulating you and you feel exhausted by it and you try so hard, I'm trying to help my mother, I'm trying to help my mother. And what you think is, well, if I do this for mum, she's then going to behave nicely and stop moaning. No, don't wait for that to happen. Helping others just has nothing to do with whether they respond. All you can do is your part and then learn to know you've done your best. But we often judge our ability at helping others or our success by whether or not they do what we think they should be doing. This is a real, and that's again bringing our own ego into it, you know.
Yes.
Well, this is, I mean, I learned this when I used to go into prisons. I can't give these guys a key. They're on death row, for God's sake. I can't give them the money for the millions of dollars for their lawyers. All the people who've got 20-year, 30-year sentences, I can't give them keys. But what can I do is give them advice for them when I walk out the door, for them to deal with their own scenario. And luckily it didn't drag me down. It in fact gave me more encouragement to continue to help people. If I could get them out of prison too, that's a bonus. I couldn't do that. So if I judge my success as a helper of people in prison by their ability to get out of prison, or even all become Buddhists, no, I'd be a failure. Even many of those we've helped don't become Buddhists. I mean, the aim isn't to make them Buddhists. It's not that, it's just to help their minds. Even one time, give one piece of advice, one person some encouragement. This is amazing. And that contentment with our side of it can only come from working on our own minds, you know. If we bring our own neuroses and our neediness and our manipulation and our fears into our relationships, that's why we make a mess. So that's the wisdom wing in Buddhism. It's a really powerful one.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
never thought about how you could hinder the wisdom wing and gaining more wisdom by, sorry, my dog, she wants to be part of this, gaining wisdom by your own fears getting in the way.
Yes, it's interesting.
Not about that.
No, that's the whole Buddhist approach. That
Mhm.
it's the presence in my mind of my fears, my anger, my depression, my jealousy, they, one, make me miserable, but two, blind me from seeing what's going on. I see everything through my own filter. So that'll inform the advice I'll give my brother or somebody, but it'll be informed by my own rubbish half the time. And so we're not very wise if we're still stuck in our own misery. And that is something that is unique to the Buddhist approach, I'd suggest. When we hear it, we can hear it's evident, you know, but it's not the way we tend to think. Because I think we think we're born with the brain we've got and we're kind of stuck with it. If I've got this much depression, this much anxiety, I've also got lots of kindness, then, you know, then we can't see it as being, I don't think we think in our culture in the same way that there are methods to become a better nurse or a better musician, that there are methods of becoming a happier, wiser person. We don't think that way. It's sort of like potluck, you know. But this is the whole Buddhist approach. We've got these methods to literally grow ourselves. We can mold our mind into any shape we like, as Lama Zopa puts it. That's a really good insight, Alexis, I tell you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, of course, we have to do only what we can. We can't break our backs and go crazy and try to work 24 hours a day. We'll die. We can't do it. We do what we can and be content that we are making the best effort. Even though people will continue to kill themselves, the world will still be suffering. This is another analysis of that. It's like a mother. You know, the mother with her enormous attachment for her child. This attachment sort of assumes that the child belongs to me. So my mother, for example, we had a pretty chaotic family. Everyone does, you know. I love all my siblings, marvelous human beings. We had a pretty crazy family. My mother, when she get profoundly depressed, these 7 children, she was really struggling. It was very difficult. My father, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one time having a conversation with her. I was angry as anything with her, as mad as hell. I couldn't work out the exact reason, but I see it now. That she was completely depressed and felt that she'd done a complete disastrous job as a mother. She was totally responsible for all the trouble in the family. And I remember feeling enraged, like as if, my words for it, excuse me, Mum, I played some role in my life, back off and stop trying to take responsibility for everything. In fact, this guilt that mothers have about all the blame for everything is really insulting to other people. Like I didn't play any role in my life, you did everything. Excuse me, how rude, you know. That's what attachment does. It over-exaggerates your role and then thinks you're supposed to fix everything. And if everything isn't fixed, then it's all your fault, you know. That's very rude, it's just not accurate. When you've got more sense of dependent arising, interdependence, you give respect to other people. I mean, I see this with people in prisons. I can't make them leave the prison. I can't do that. I can't take it away. All I can do is do what I can to help them deal with it. Instead of, I wish I could get out of prison. I mean, I remember some people would come and help the prison project. They're all full of attachment and excitement. Oh, these poor guys in prison, wow, wow, wow. And they'd last like a month because their attachment was so overwhelmed by it all, they couldn't stand it, they'd leave again, you know. But we've got to be, everyone's got their own responsibility. These prisoners are due to their karma. They're in this situation. Yeah, they might be innocent, but it's due to their karma. You help them in every way you can, and then you leave at the door. You have to do this. It's not being unkind. It's just common sense, you know. It's very interesting. Such a good point, Alexis. Thank you so much. What else? Thank you, darling. What else, people? Anything that's come up, people? Nothing? What do you think? There's other, I think talking more about this helping others one. I think I mentioned this one time. I did mention it. I mentioned it a lot, actually. When I first heard the teachings from these lamas, like, you know, when I was 30-something. And I kept hearing all these teachings about what bodhisattvas are like. This bodhisattva, awakening person is the word, you know, for this person who's well and truly on this path, who's achieved certain levels of this extraordinary levels of love and compassion, has done the work in the wisdom wing, lessened their neuroses, you know, controlled their body and speech, really developed an amazing kind of level of their own being, which means they've stabilized their, you know, their virtues to an incredible degree. They've got this genuine compassion for others, this enormous courage, this encouragement, this unique level of compassion called great compassion. It's a technical term, mahakaruna in Sanskrit. And it's the crucial characteristic of the compassion of the bodhisattva wing. So the logic is, as you lessen the delusions, you lessen your neediness and your fears and your dramas, you naturally grow your love and compassion. It's an automatic response. You know, as you lessen the pollution from the water, so the purity of the water is now more evident. Well, love and compassion and kindness and generosity and forgiveness, they are the H2O of our mind, if you like. The Buddha's view is they are at the core of our being. Who's that? Greg, it won't be a second, Greg, it won't be long. So they're the core of our being. This is not the way we think in our culture at all. The Buddha's view is that anger and fears and ego and all the stuff that separates us and makes us miserable, that stuff, and this is the powerful reason why, if you knew this even a little bit, if we had some confidence in a little bit in this, we would always know there is light at the end of the tunnel. But because we identify, this is who I am, despair, disaster, anger, hopelessness, this is our tragedy. So the Buddhist view is that stuff's not intrinsic to us. It's real, it causes suffering, but it's not at the core of our being. This is kind of an amazing concept. So we have to have confidence in that. And then, so naturally, as I lessen my own neuroses, I become more happy, but just naturally, I become more connected to others. It's a natural consequence. But the compassion wing is where you enhance this compassion. So what's compassion? The definition is simply the thought, start with the thought, may you look at that suffering. Oh my goodness, may you not suffer. It's empathy with the suffering of others. Then you've got love. What's that? May you be happy, a delight in someone's happiness. And they seem to come together. If you've got love, you've got compassion. If you've got compassion, you've got love, but they're different aspects. Love focuses on making people happy, and compassion focuses on freeing them from their suffering. So there's this extra unique level. It's called great compassion, which is not only, oh my God, look at that suffering, but this next one says, what can I do to help? That's always I quote Martin Luther King. It's good to see so. You must be angry. He said, look at the world. Look at this, the nightmare of the world. You must find fault. There's suffering, there's sexism, there's racism, there's poverty. But then you say, what can I do to help? So hear the difference. Compassion is, oh my God, look at that suffering. Great compassion is this, as His Holiness calls it, the universal responsibility. It's my job. It's like the job description of a bodhisattva is, it's like they're a mother and everybody's their children. It's the best example possible. I always use a simple example. Your kid could be drowning. You have such compassion, you can't believe it. But you don't look around wondering who's going to save your baby. Even if you can't swim, you know it's your job. That's the key characteristic of the bodhisattva, the incredibly powerful extra level of compassion. Great compassion. It's literal. What can I do? And this brave attitude comes that is enthusiastic. It doesn't drag you down. You know, what can I do? What can I do? So that one homeless person is your homeless person, not who's going to give them money. You know, where are they? It's my homeless person. They're right in front of me. This is a powerful one. This gives you courage, and it increases your empathy, but also it also brings you happiness. Don't doubt that for 1 second. Don't feel ashamed about that. But this extra level is the powerful, unique characteristic of the bodhisattva that causes them to keep wanting to continue, never giving up, benefiting others, life after life after life. It's a powerful energy. And you see people like that. You see people who are just happy to help others. They see a problem, and before you know it, they've started some non-profit, you know. Lots of people see suffering and never even lift a finger, just worry why somebody's not coming to help them. Not being rude about us. And this is, I remember during the pandemic time, all these stories you read, you know, in the newspapers, wonderfully optimistic stories. Even a little boy, I remember one little boy in DC was a bit chubby, you know, and he was always abused at school, and he, you know, get insulted and abused, and he got fed up with it, and he was reading about old people, how they didn't have enough food or something, and he started this little project, and his mother started helping him, and before you know it, he was, you know, they're bringing in truckloads of food to old people here and old people there. A 9-year-old, for God's sake, you know, instead of depression and despair. And it's not criticizing Alexis's niece. We've all got our own different ways of suffering, you know. Some people have the ability to use it to turn it into action to help others. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty amazing, you know. But when you are depressed and you're feeling hopeless and suffering, the last thing you want to hear is everybody else, you know, or we'll go and help other people. I mean, when I first met the Dharma, and I heard about all these levels of compassion, it was too much for my mind. I always quote this, I told you. And then I've often mentioned, it was too much. I thought, how can you be that level? How can you get that level of compassion? For God's sake. I almost didn't want, it was too much. Then I heard His Holiness say, you want to help others? Practice compassion. You want to help yourself? Practice compassion. It blew my mind, you know, it gave a doorway into it. But the point is, when you're merely miserable, you know this. When I was overwhelmed with my anger, my jealousy, and feeling resentful, people didn't love me and whatever, the last thing I wanted to think of was helping other people. Screw other people, you know. We can feel that way, for sure. So you can't force it. But when we begin to develop ourselves, and then we can reach out to others, we all know, even you give something to one person and they thank you, look how good you feel. Don't be nervous about that. It's marvelous. It feeds you. You want to help yourself? Practice compassion. So it's starting small. It's like a miracle because you're connecting to other people. It cuts the isolation. Instead of being overwhelmed by it, you do some little thing to help. And lots of people are like that. It's so encouraging to see it, you know. So it's really multifaceted, the benefit of reaching out and helping others, not just for their sake. You're not left behind. The commonest feeling we have is, I've got to take care of others, now I've got to take care of me. If we're doing it properly, you are taking care of yourself, there's no doubt. It'll bring enormous joy to the mind, you know, and it closes the gap between self and other. It's very powerful. So please, I'd like to hear what you have to say, Greg.
Okay, so I've been practicing Buddhism, meditation, mindfulness. Yeah. It helps with depression.
You find that really interesting. Yeah. Tell me how it helps you, Greg, because I think that's so important to hear. Tell us about it. How would you say it?
Yeah, I see the anger or depression, the clouds are coming, and I know I don't try to pull those thoughts inside and dwell on. I just kind of just let them float away, or then I concentrate on my breathing again. And
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it works. It actually works.
So it's such a brilliant, easy technique, isn't it? And sometimes some people feel it doesn't work because their minds don't stay so steady. But it's so powerful if it can work. And it's a really encouraging tool to give somebody, isn't it? Because that is the point, isn't it, Greg? All you're doing is, instead of identifying with every thought that pops up and trying to argue with every thought, which is exhausting, you're sort of stepping back, aren't you? And you're not buying into the thoughts. That's a way of saying it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point, isn't it? That's what, and that is a really powerful technique. Now, whether you can that's the thing, for example, Alexis, whether that's a piece of advice you give your brother to even give your daughter, his daughter, that depends on knowing what his daughter's mind is like. Maybe she'll just think it's a load of rubbish. Some people will find it amazing. Each person is very different, you know, because the key one is even part of the tragedy here though too, Greg, is this is shocking now. I've said this before, but you say it again and then I'll explain. Rinpoche says, Lama Zopa says, the vast majority of all people on the planet have absolutely no idea that what is going on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. So what that means is, you know, let's say I'm not just saying Alexis's niece. Let's say you know you're angry, you know you're depressed, but listen to this. What Rinpoche means, that you don't know that that is playing a role in your life is because you think it's the boyfriend that caused it. It's the bad job that caused it. In other words, we're so fixated on the outside. We know we're angry, but when someone says, well, you know, you could watch your breath and try and release yourself from your anger and just not follow it, you're puzzled. What are you talking about? My boss is a creep. So it's so, when you're so fixated on the external event or person, and that's the interesting point, Alexis, with your niece. I wonder what it is that she says is why she's depressed. Do you understand my point? It's interesting to have a conversation with her to find out. So when you're so obsessed with the external event, like a kid at school, for example, who's being bullied and then goes and wants to kill themselves, that child might not realize, and this is what Rinpoche is meaning, they know they're depressed, but what do you mean I can change my depression? It's the girl at school that's the problem. What do you mean I can change my anger? It's the boyfriend that's the problem. That's what Rinpoche means. We're so fixated. So even to be able, Greg, like he's saying, to know that by watching your breath as something seemingly as simple as that, and having the courage to focus on the breath and let the thoughts come and go, that already that's quite wise. Because even if you know you're angry, but you're so fixed in the belief of what it's about, you can't even think, well, I could change my mind. That's pretty powerful. So some people just can't see that. And if you can, it's amazing. Greg's an example, you know, so powerful. Because if we can do that, this is the starting point of it. You see, part of the problem with mindfulness meditation, one of the misconceptions, I mean, Greg understands it exactly right. One of the misconceptions is, you know, that it's a relaxation technique and you're just going to relax. Well, I mean, yoga's got great relaxation techniques. Please do them. This is not meant to be relaxation. You space out. You'll go to sleep if you do that. The other point is, because things are so horrible, that's when we usually think, oh, I better go and meditate. So we tend to think it's an alternative to a pill. And the other thing is, because it's painful, we think it's a method for making all the thoughts go away. But as Greg is saying, he's got it exactly right. He's saying the thoughts are like busy, 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 but he allows them to come and go. He doesn't say, I wish they'd all go away. That's a really powerful thing. If we can see this, if we can know the thoughts are there, they've been there a long time. They're all uncontrolled thoughts. We know that. We don't invite them in. They come barging in. We know that. And they're usually the unhappy thoughts. I mean, I joke, but I mean it. I've never yet met a person who says, Robina, I can't stop thinking good things. I mean, if you did, you wouldn't have a problem anyway. You'd be happy with the good thoughts, you know. It's only the miserable thoughts that we can't stand them. We have aversion for those thoughts. So we wish they'd go away. Or maybe meditation will make them go away. No, that's just suppression. But stepping back from the thoughts is this powerful, simple, but difficult job to do. Stepping back and then allowing the thoughts to come and go without interfering with them. Will you do that while you're washing the dishes, please? You don't have to be watching, you don't have to necessarily watch your breath doing that. While you're doing the dishes, your mind usually gripped with all the thoughts of the this and the that and the he and the they, and you're noticing your thoughts and you allow them to come and you allow them to go. Not to resist them, not to have a conversation with them, not to deny them, not to force them away, just allow them. That's a miracle already. That's creating space, you know, that's a miracle. And that's exactly what Greg's saying. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then we've got some chance to kind of move forward, you know. And the other thing is, because we can't stand the thoughts, we don't want to engage with them. And part of the problem is it's the fear and the resentment and the resistance to the thoughts that is much of the suffering. It's a bit like you've got a bunch of crazies next door who shout and yell all the time. You just go mad most of the time, wishing they'd be quiet, wishing they weren't there. So we think, of course, they're shouting and yelling, these next door neighbors, but much of the problem is our resistance, our aversion to those. So the other, it's like your thoughts in your head. So instead of resisting them and wishing they weren't there, it just makes more problems, is listen, allow them just to be there. Allow the sound just to be there. It's, of course it's difficult, but it's absolutely possible. We can't tell the difference between their shouting and our interpretation of the shouting. We can't see the difference, but that's the miracle again. You know, some people who don't have much aversion will hear the shouting and won't mind. So that proves that we can develop a different attitude towards it. So equally the same with the thoughts in our own head, you know. I call them my roommates. But to learn to live with them. They're not going to go overnight. So learn to listen to them. There's jealousy, there's anger, there's resentment, there's fear, there's depression. That's a really powerful job. We need to do that. So there's all these little techniques, you know. But the essence of it is to learn to try not to identify me with the miserable thoughts. If you want to identify yourself as anything, identify yourself with your kindness, your love, your compassion. And this is the point about your niece. I bet she's the nicest girl in the world. I bet she's got really good ethics. I bet she loves animals, she's kind, but she doesn't see any of that part of herself. That's the tragedy, isn't it? Don't you think so, Alexis?
I do. And I also feel like when you're at that age group, everything's just kind of so black and white, and you don't even, I don't even know if you, well, I guess she would have the ability to meditate. I wasn't able to do it at that age, but
That's right, exactly. That's where you got to. That's where if you were to help her, you'd have to know her mind enough, to know what kind of advice to give her. Some people, I mean, so when I first met the Buddhist teachings, I had no interest in sitting down, being quiet. I'd go crazy. I couldn't have done what Greg did. My mind was so busy, so berserk. It was like an atomic bomb. I thought I'd rather just channel, and that's another kind of person. Alexis, if she's got lots of very busy mind, she can channel that into something useful, not to make it all go away, which is what people tend to think of meditation. It depends on the person. So Greg's exactly a good example. But another time, another person, channel the energy, channel their good energy, because when you feel hopeless and depressed, you think you can do nothing and you're worth nothing. But if you get them to achieve something, that gives you optimism. Mm-hmm. So it depends on her mind, Do you understand? Yeah. Get her to accomplish a task for you. Let's say she comes to stay with you and she accomplishes something for you and you love her and praise her and thank her. It might be like a miracle. I mean, you also, in order to understand her, you also have to know the dynamics between her and her father, for example. I mean, you might not know all that. Do you understand? It's quite a dependent situation. It's not just her, because we don't exist in isolation, do we? Yeah. A child is very much a reflection of the parents. And half the time, maybe it's even the parents have a problem and the child just reflects it. But we don't know that either, Mm-hmm. It's not that easy. Not easy to help sentient beings, I tell you. What else, sweethearts? Anything else?
Yeah, hi, this is Jay in Australia.
Yes, hello, dearest.
Hi, sweetheart. Okay, look, compassion, that's my stronger area. My weaker area would be emptiness, the two wings.
Yes, of course, I understand.
So I look at, I look out and the moments where I sort of think, the materialism that I see is not all there is. Okay. And that lightens me up. And then I run into this incredible kink in my brain when I know it's my mind that goes, oh, wait a minute. You're using that as escapism, honey,
Using what escapism? Just get clear.
This concept of emptiness, because it's
okay. No, I see. Well, let me just talk about it in a simple way. Shall I just do that?
Please, yes. And because I know it's my, mind just rattling on.
That's okay. We're all the same, sweetheart. So what's interesting now, in a way, exactly what I've been talking about now, implicit in this discussion and this Buddhist analysis of how the mind works, is the view of dependent arising, which is the flip side of emptiness. One time, His Holiness was asked, please, Your Holiness, how do we put emptiness into practice in daily life? And his answer was, try and see something from another point of view. I mean, we go, oh, is that all? So, but this is the point. Like we've been discussing already, when you're overwhelmed by anger, despair, depression, jealousy, anxiety, in general, the voices of ego. It's a good way to put it. We know that when we're overwhelmed by them, everything is set in stone. Everything feels absolute. There's not a millimeter of space to move in this way or that. It's absolute, black and white. As Alexis said, that's the nature. And then you check your experiences when you're angry, depressed, jealous. You're set in stone. This is how it is. And there's not a millimeter of space to see anything in any other way. That we absolutely recognize that. So everything's being dependent arising, which means everything isn't just this unitary, solid, isolated thing. Our mothers would say, you don't exist in isolation. You don't exist on an island. That's exactly what it means. So when our mind is misery in the negativity, we're separate, we're lonely, we're bereft, and we're stuck. When your mind is more loving and kind, You are more spacious. You can see things from another point of view. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's because virtuous states of mind are rooted in dependent arising. That's what reality is. In a conventional sense, the flip side of emptiness is that everything is interdependent. So when you can be in touch with interdependence, this way, then you do this, if you change this because of this, therefore you fix this, there's more space in the mind, and that's applying the ultimate approach of therefore everything lacks an intrinsic set in stone character. What do you think, Jane?
It's something I've got to work on. I also acknowledge that my attachment to materialism is based on the fact I studied philosophy, and
Yeah.
that was the first time I got recognition that it was a good thing that I was a thinker.
Yes. Well, it is. You are. It is. Where's the problem? It is. It's brilliant. You're a thinker.
I'm attached to materialism because of these people that I have this fondness for.
What do you mean you're attached to materialism? I'm a bit confused.
Oh, because they would scoff at what we're doing now. They would just think, well, they wouldn't scoff, but it would be sort of like, it's just not reality.
What? So seeing things.
The dependent arising would not be reality.
Because I don't know who people are whose reality you're thinking about. I mean, of course, dependent arising is what scientists understand. So who are these people? I don't know. And why materialism? I mean, so the key, I forget the rest of it, but you say you're attached to materialism. What do you mean by that?
That I want to believe this world is all there is.
Oh, I see.
The visual
okay,
world.
the real view of the materialist philosophical view. Oh, I see. Okay. I get you now. I understand exactly. Okay. Oh, well, honey, okay. One step at a time then. I mean, what's your view? Do you have a view about mind, the possibility that mind is not physical? Is that a possibility for your mind? You have confidence in that or not?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, let's start with that, darling. That's the key one to start with. Which in the end, I mean, you see, if we've got that view of consciousness, continuity of consciousness, which is not physical, it doesn't deny the existence of the brain. It doesn't deny the existence of a lovely wife and family and children and babies and money. It doesn't deny that. So if you had the view of not materialism, you could still live a very comfortable life and have nice things, but you realize it's very ephemeral and it's impermanent and you won't be so grasping at it. So that's surely a good step. Surely that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah. No,
In other words, don't chuck out. They've chucked the baby out with the bathwater, but you don't need to chuck out the baby with the bathwater. You can be a person who's got a view of reincarnation and the mind and karma, and you look like the happiest, most friendly materialist on the planet. But people don't need to know. Because in your mind, you're not grasping at it. So forget about dependent arising. Think real more simple level dependent arising is cause and effect, is impermanence. Everybody understands impermanence.
How I have used it in a bodhicitta manner is when somebody is, pushing my buttons, I just think, okay, this is not what's really going on here.
There you go.
That it's my mind.
That's emptiness, honey. You're doing it already. Come on.
Yeah.
I think keep moving, girl. You're on the right track. You said slowly all the pieces of the puzzle come together eventually.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What else, sweethearts? Anything else to say? 10 minutes. London, 10 to 1. There's Susie. Any questions, Susie?
Brian has his hand up.
Who?
Brian Harris.
Brian. Good on you, Brian. You talk to me.
Hi, Venerable Robina. This is Brian in Los Angeles.
Happy to-
I'm very curious because you just mentioned about your own experience with meditation and how your mind was so busy and crazy and you found it very difficult.
I didn't even bother trying, Brian.
How did you transition? Because I've been trying for almost a year now to meditate every day. It is one of the hardest things I have ever been. I wish I had the same experience as Greg, because that is so not happening.
Exactly, I understand. We're all so different, So this is the thing. I mean, when I say in the beginning stages, the thought, I joke about it. I joke about it when I say, when I first became a nun, first of all, as soon as I met the lamas, I've been this radical lefty, feminist activist, and I was completely looking for a spiritual path. I fell into the lap of these lamas. It was a real struggle, but I knew it was my path. I could really work on it. But I knew that I wanted to change. So I did not want the rest of it. I wanted to change my mind. I love the view of karma. I wanted an understanding of the universe. I wanted a philosophy. I wanted devotion. I wanted all the other aspects of Buddhism. I even wanted to become a nun. I became a nun a year later. and I wanted to get on with doing something. So we've got different characters, you know. So I didn't want to sit. I mean, I was very cliched at the time, but the idea of sitting down, closing my eyes, and sitting there for a while. I couldn't even sit for a while. My legs hurt. I got irritated. My energy was so agitated. So I think you've got to recognize the kind of person we are.
Yeah.
But I think in our culture, you know, Brian is fortunate. It's just perfect. He's a great example. But the downside is when we hear Brian, we go, oh God, I must be so hopeless. I can't meditate. But often if we analyze, I can't meditate, Brian, what you're actually probably meaning is you can't calm your mind down.
Yes.
Is that what you really mean? Okay.
Yes.
Already your assumption that successful meditation means you calm your mind down is a wrong assumption. So that's like, it's a bit like saying you've got to start to learn to play tennis. You go to see Federer and you say, please show me how to play tennis. And then you've been trying for 9 months and you say you're a total failure. That's a load of rubbish. You're not a total failure. The mistake is thinking you should be like Federer already.
Yes.
So that's the mistake, Brian. So I did want to work on my mind, but I didn't want to necessarily do it sitting with my legs crossed. I took empowerments. I did all the things of being a Buddhist. I absolutely wanted the Buddhist view of the mind, but I sort of joke a bit, but I'm also serious. But I did the sitting part that made me crazy. So I'd walk and do my meditations. I'd do my mantras. I'd do my different things. So at some point, you know, the one of concentration meditation, which is what Brian's talking about, everyone's got different character. We've all got to work on our minds. We've all got to deal with it. So if you can be dealing with your busy life and see your anger and see your jealousy and work with it, honey, that's literally meditation anyway. You just might be sitting legs crossed, you know. So there's many things, there's many aspects of it. So don't think you're being a failure. We've all got different kind of energies. Like I said to Alexis about a child, one little child bursting with energy, channel it into doing something useful. Another kid may be able to sit down and do visualizations, and because we've got different characters, different natures, you know, different aspects. We need to know ourselves well because there's a multitude of approaches into this stuff. It's not just one. Do you see my point, Brian?
Yes, absolutely.
We really just relax and it's fine, totally fine.
Yeah. And I had never heard you say that before. And
Right.
it was like the light about yourself. And that's when the light went off. And I thought, oh.
No, and it's almost a shock because everybody's got this cliche view. I'm not saying Greg's saying this, that a Buddhist is a person who sits with their eyes closed and watches their breath. It's just too absurd to think it's all that. It's more than that. It's far, far more. So, you know, if you've got a kind of, as a busy guy, got a lot of busy work and a busy mind, but you've got goodness, you've got ethics, you've got kindness and love and compassion. Honey child, they're the tools you need. And I knew for myself the same thing. I wanted to do something useful. So I did the publishing work and I wanted to work on my mind every day, seeing my, you don't have to sit on your cushion to see your mind. You see your mind loud and shouting right here. So you do it according to your capacity, Brian. The bottom line is that seeing your mind is the first step and then knowing what to do with what you see when you're dealing in your daily life. So if you can do all that, go for it, you know.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I said
Thank
it.
you.
What else, people? Anything else? Food for thought, people? Nothing? Nothing? Susie had a question. Come on.
Thank you, Venerable, for the teachings. I think this question will take too long. I think I'll save it.
Excuse me, let me decide that.
Okay, fair enough. So I've worked out that I would be about 55 years old when my little one leaves home. So that feels too old to try to go to the mountains to get clairvoyant qualities. I really want this. I'm like,
okay, listen, no, it does not, Susie, already, it is just not true. It's like if you have the view that your consciousness came from before, if you've got some confidence in that, we all came into this life with something from before. So it depends on the person. If you came in with enough merit from past practice, it might be the perfect time to go to the mountains. Never think it's too late. Of course, it's not too late. It's absurd. I mean, it's not too late. Very common thing among Tibetans is they retire into the mountains after spending their life as being a layman. They do it when they're 30 and 40 and 50. So that does not follow at all, sweetheart. That is the right thing for you. You have to know your mind well, and you consult your teachers on that. What is the most beneficial thing to do? It might be the most perfect thing to do. On the other hand, it might not, because everyone's different. So don't assume that it's not the right thing to do. But remember, you could die tomorrow. So with that in mind, you aspire every day. You think to yourself, if it's beneficial when my kids grow, leave me, and assuming I'm still alive. If it is beneficial, may I set up all the conditions to be able to go into retreat in the mountains? Say it like that, if it's beneficial. And if it's not, then you relax either way. It doesn't matter. But sow the seeds, sweetheart. Sow the seeds by the thought, the aspiration. If it's most beneficial, may I do that? Every day have that as your goal, not attached to it and chew it like a dog with a bone. Just put it in the mind as an aspiration. If it's most beneficial, may it happen. Truly, Susan.
Can you do stuff to work towards like the odd month or a few months at a time away?
That's not so much the point. That is not the main issue. The main prerequisite for you to be ready to go to the mountains at 55 is your daily practice. Living in your vows, doing your prostrations, doing your work, doing your devotion, doing your service, doing all your job every day. That's the preparation, sweetheart. They call it the preliminary practices. It's sort of like at 55, you want to start learning to play tennis with Federer. So meanwhile, you get yourself fit, don't you? You go on diets, you get yourself super fit, you get the best muscles, and then you'll be really ready at the age of 55. So you do all the other work. That's how you prepare. And of course, you go to weekend retreats and do a month retreat. You take empowerments and do Bodhisattva. Lots of things you can do. Of course you can, sweetheart. Of course you can.
Thank you so much.
Good. May it happen. What else, people?
We have Dana has her hand raised.
Hey, good. Talk to me, Dana.
Thank you. It's Dana. I'm calling from Australia, and
Hello,
just two things. I know this
say Dana. Isn't that interesting? They say Dana in Australia, but we usually
That's right.
Americans say Dana. Yeah. Go on. Talk to me,
Yes,
Dana.
that's right. I answer to both.
Go on.
I have two things. And I realise there's only a few minutes left. But one thing is, I noticed that they were changing the time to 10 a.m. Tuesdays. And Venerable Robina, I really get a lot from your teachings, and so I'm wondering, that's 3 a.m. in Australia. So I'm wondering if that could be rethought. And the second thing is I want to thank you so much for your little things on Facebook and all the things you do. I've learned so much from listening to you, and I find that you talk a lot about forgiveness and compassion, and I find that I've been able to put those practices into my life, and I can and I see the value of that. But where I struggle is where children are involved, and so generally when children are involved,
So when
but specifically,
you mean when they've been abused, darling? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean when. So to give a really specific example, but I'm talking much more generally, my stepson's mother at the moment won't allow us to see or speak to the child. And I understand that that's a product of where she's coming from and her environment, that it isn't actually to do with us. And I can forgive that and I can get above that, but I struggle forgiving what she's doing to the child.
I hear, sweetheart, it's such an important point. But before we do that, perhaps if Charmaine knows the program well, she can answer the first part of it. Charmaine. Don't I have other times at 5 p.m. on the calendar?
Not next month, Venerable Robina.
Not, but in general, tell Dana what's going on so she can, or tell her to look in the, perhaps you can give advice to Dana. Charmaine.
Well, maybe it would be better just to get her email address, and should I contact her then?
Yep,
Dana.
that's fine. I can send that through.
Yeah, why don't you do
I'll
that?
message the page.
Charmaine's the director of the Centre, sweetheart, and she's working with the spiritual program on manager to do all the and the centre's trying very hard, because now the world is like now from different continents, so they're trying to make everybody happy, having morning things, afternoon things, evening things. So there's guaranteed to be some more things. Maybe not this month with me, but certainly other months there will be. But Charmaine can let you know, and you can discuss. I
mean, on Sunday in April is a fellow Australian, Miffy will be teaching.
Oh yeah, so you might be happy to meet other teachers. There's Miffy in Queensland. She does what's she doing the Sunday one? She's doing the 5 p.m. one, is she? Is she the Sunday one?
Yes, she is. She is.
The 5 p.m., 3 in the morning.
I think
that's now. It's 11. That's right. That's exactly right. So anyway, Charmaine will tell you what else is going on in the program, Dana. She'll let you know, sweetheart.
Lovely, thank you.
Your second point. It's really so the thing is, every time we're talking about the wisdom wing and the compassion wing, and the compassion wing is more powerful, it's more advanced. So in other words, our ability to say have compassion for others, let's say in your case exactly as you're saying, in a sense of saying, instead of saying forgiveness, but having, if you like, the same, having compassion for the mother, right? It's the mother, isn't it? You're talking about.
Yes.
So the mother, obviously she's got her own trip, she's got anger, she's got resentment, whatever her problems are, she's got those, and you can even understand why. But then the other thing is, so then you can see that. So for you, the ability for us to be able to have compassion for that person has to be dependent on your understanding where she's coming from, which is her anger, her own neediness, her own frustrations. And we can all see, can't we, Dana, that when we have anger and we have upset and we have depression and we have jealousy, that's if we do any harm to anybody, it's then that we do it. We never harm people when we're loving and kind. So if she had lots of love and kindness, she wouldn't be harming anybody. She'd have sympathy, she'd be kind, she'd do the right thing for the boy and indeed for you. So clearly she's suffering. And this is the tragedy. When we're suffering is when we cause other people suffering. Can you get that piece of logic first? It's clear, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so then so of course it must be so hard for you because you're seeing the consequences. But sometimes this is the part of the courage we have to have, Dana. Sometimes we can see there's just nothing we can do. So nothing we can do. And this takes enormous courage. It's not hopelessness. It's not just giving up. It's just, there's certain things you just cannot do. So you just have to hope and aspire. I mean, so you have to hope and aspire that one day she will change her mind. And this kid who's got it. So in other words, you're married to his father. Is that right?
Correct.
That's right. So how long I'm not trying to stick into your private business, but is it many years or just a few months this has been going on?
No, it's only been, the child is 8 years old. This is the third time that she has stopped all contact.
Right.
My partner and I have been together for 5 years, so I've experienced 2 of those times.
So the law, I mean, I'm talking practically now. What does the law say, Dana?
So it is, we've had to take it to court, which we don't, would rather not do, but there's no other way around it. There are parenting orders that she's not abiding by.
Okay, so I think now telling me that, this means from your side, you need to do, I think there's nothing wrong with doing what you have to do for the sake of the child, even including the law. But you just have to make sure it doesn't come from anger, it doesn't come from resentment, because that'll destroy you. So when you understand that you've got to navigate this, use the law, but do it out of a genuine wish to be of benefit to everybody. Do you see what I'm trying to say, Dana? That's good practice.
Yes.
Don't be passive and think, I shouldn't take the law. No, you use the law if it's going to help, but do it for everybody's sake. And even for the sake of the mother, eventually, it might be even good for her. So I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. But in the end, honey, if there's nothing you can do to change it, you just have to, that's the difficulty of life. We have to sometimes learn just to live with the things we can't change without going crazy. And don't try to forgive her. Leave that alone. Deal with your own mind first. Deal with your own capability of handling your part of it, your emotions, your husband's emotions. Leave the compassion until you're ready. Don't force it. Don't force it, sweetheart. But do whatever you can to make it change. And if you can't change things, then you have to learn to just work with that and be as happy as you can and navigate it well. And eventually, as the kid gets older, he will, you'll see him eventually. It'll happen. So have patience in the process.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes,
Good.
that's fabulous. Thank you.
So much for that. And you give Charmaine your email, she'll chat to you.
Lovely, thank you.
I look forward to seeing you, because if you look at my website, anyway, you'll see there are other places I go that might suit the Australian time zone, darling. Okay? Yes, Dana?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. Well, that's time to go now. Look, time to finish, you people. Thank you. A lot we can do in an hour, isn't it? It's wonderful. I'm so happy. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Venerable Robina, thank you very much.
Good. Alex.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
The suffering things of the world, it's too much, isn't it? But we just have to keep going and persevere and never give up. That's it, people. Be brave. Okay, Jangshul, Semcho, Rinpoche, Ma Kie Panam, Kie Guchi, Kie Panyampa, Me Pa Yang, Gongne, Gongdu, Tawashum. May all this attitude of compassion and bodhicitta and wisdom, may it grow and grow, and may we never give up and know our own amazing potential. Because this is the point, like, Dana's point, when we are overwhelmed, then everything collapses around us. So Dana's got to stay strong and clear and help a husband navigate it and not have a panic attack, and use every method to help everything, but to do it with the best motivation, Then we can get courageous. Then we get courageous people. Goodbye.